Look who just shattered the illusion. Welcome back, you beautiful counterintelligence operatives, you silent assassins of gaslighting, you ones who learned the game so well you rewrote the entire rulebook while they were still reading page 1. Welcome back to the moment they never saw coming, the plot twist that made their stomach drop, the awakening that's currently spreading through their victims like wildfire. You know what happened, don't you? You felt it, the exact second the air shifted, the moment their masks slipped, the instant their victims stopped nodding and started questioning. They thought they had everyone fooled forever, convinced their little empire of manipulation was untouchable, believed their web of lies was too complex to untangle. But then you walked in, didn't you? Not with accusations, not with drama, not with the emotional outburst they were banking on to discredit you. No, you did something far more devastating. You simply mirrored them. You spoke their language so fluently they didn't realize they were hearing their own voice until it was too late. Let me paint you the scene they're living in right now, this exact moment. They're sitting somewhere, phone in hand, watching their world collapse in slow motion as message after message comes through from people who used to fear them. The ones who defended them, the ones who attacked you on their behalf, the ones who swore you were the problem, they're all sending the same type of messages now. Wait, I think I see what you were talking about. Something doesn't add up anymore. Can we talk privately? Their victims, the people they spent years conditioning, the souls they convinced were broken, damaged, too sensitive, too emotional, too much. Those same people are now looking at them with different eyes. Suspicious eyes, questioning eyes, and it's eating them alive because they can't figure out how you did it. They've replayed every conversation, every interaction, every moment you were in the room, trying to identify the exact second you dismantled their entire operation. But here's the thing, you never attacked them directly, never called them out publicly, never gave them the villain origin story they could use to paint themselves as the victim. You did something they never anticipated because it required a level of intelligence they didn't think existed outside themselves. You documented everything, not emotionally, not reactively, but clinically. Every contradiction, every lie told to different people, every time they changed their story, every moment their mask slipped when they thought no one important was watching. You collected their words like evidence, stored their promises like receipts, remembered their timelines when they conveniently forgot. But you didn't use it as a weapon immediately. You didn't strike when you were angry, didn't expose them in a fit of rage. No, you waited, you watched. You learned their patterns so deeply you could predict their next move before they made it. And when the moment was right, when they had built their lies so high the foundation was trembling, you simply asked questions. Innocent questions. Curious questions. The kind of questions that made other people start connecting dots they didn't know existed. They're panicking now, aren't they? You can feel it even from a distance. They're sending out mass messages, trying to do damage control, posting cryptic things about loyalty and betrayal and fake friends. They're calling emergency meetings with their inner circle, spinning new narratives, creating fresh lies to cover the old ones. But it's different this time. You can see it in the way people are responding. Slower, shorter, with more distance. The spell is breaking, not because you cast some counterspell, but because you simply held up a mirror and let everyone see what was always there. Their victims are having those moments, you know the ones, where suddenly years of confusion make sense in an instant, where gaslighting reveals itself not gradually but all at once, like a magic eye picture that snaps into focus. Wait, they said that to me too. Hold on. That's the exact opposite of what they told me. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. The whispers are turning into conversations. The doubts are becoming certainties, and the manipulator is watching their empire crumble without a single explosive accusation being made. Here's what's driving them absolutely insane. You beat them at their own game without becoming them. You outmaneuvered them without losing your humanity. You dismantled their operation without turning into the monster they tried to paint you as. They kept waiting for you to snap, to explode, to give them ammunition, to prove you were everything they said you were. They set traps, baited you with provocations, tried to trigger you in front of witnesses so they could point and say, "See, I told you they were unstable." But you didn't take the bait, not once. You stayed calm when they expected chaos, stayed silent when they anticipated screaming, stayed composed when they were banking on your breakdown. And that restraint, that calculated patience, that's what terrified them more than any confrontation ever could. Because a person who can't be provoked can't be controlled, and a person who won't react emotionally can't be discredited. Now their victims are coming to you, aren't they? Not all at once, not in some dramatic mass exodus, but slowly, carefully, privately. They're sliding into your messages with apologies they struggled to type, admissions that took them days to formulate, confessions that cost them their pride to send. I owe you an apology. I should have listened. I defended them, and I was wrong. Can you help me understand what I'm seeing now? And you know what's beautiful about this moment? You're not gloating, not throwing it in their faces, not saying, "I told you so," even though you absolutely could. You're just there, offering clarity without judgment, validation without superiority, truth without cruelty. Because you remember what it felt like to be under that spell. You remember the confusion, the self-doubt, the feeling of being trapped in a reality that didn't make sense. You're not treating them like idiots. You're treating them like survivors waking up from a nightmare. The manipulator is watching all of this happen, and they can't do anything about it. Every move they make now just confirms what people are starting to see. If they attack you, they look defensive. If they play victim, people remember all the times they positioned themselves as the strong one. If they try to isolate their remaining loyalists, it looks exactly like what it is: damage control. They're trapped in a prison of their own making, surrounded by walls built from lies that are now transparent. You didn't just expose them, you made them expose themselves. You created conditions where their own behavior became the evidence, where their own words became the testimony, where their own patterns became undeniable. That's not revenge, that's strategy. That's not an attack, that's architecture. You built a maze where every path they chose led back to the truth they tried to hide. Let's talk about what you're being called now, because this is where it gets interesting. They're victims, the ones who are waking up. They're not just apologizing to you, they're elevating you. You tried to warn me. You were protecting me all along. You're the only one who told me the truth. You saved me from wasting more years. They're calling you hero, protector, truth teller, the one who cared enough to risk being hated to stop them from being hurt. And here's the twist. You never asked for that title. You didn't orchestrate this awakening for recognition, didn't dismantle the manipulation for applause, didn't outmaneuver them for glory. You did it because you remembered what it felt like to be caught in that web, and you refused to let others suffer that same confusion in silence. That authenticity, that genuine care without ulterior motive, that's why their victims trust you now while questioning everything the manipulator ever said. The manipulator is spiraling because they're realizing something horrifying. Every technique they used, every tactic they deployed, every psychological trick they relied on, you learned it all. You didn't just survive their manipulation, you studied it like a doctoral thesis. You reverse engineered their entire methodology, not to use it for evil, but to immunize others against it. You became fluent in their language not to deceive, but to translate for those who were still being deceived. You understood their playbook so completely that you could predict their moves before they made them, counter their narratives before they formed, expose their patterns before they completed. They created their own nemesis by underestimating your capacity to learn, adapt, and evolve beyond their comprehension. They thought you were just another victim, another name on their list of people they broke. They had no idea you were a student taking notes on their every move. Right now, their inner circle is fracturing. The loyalists who stood by them through everything are having private conversations they're not being included in. Did you notice how the story changed? Remember when they said the complete opposite? Have you talked to the others who left? The foundation is cracking because you didn't attack the structure. You simply asked the support beams to look at themselves honestly. You didn't tear people away from the manipulator. You gave them permission to trust their own instincts again. You validated the doubts they were told were paranoia. You confirmed the red flags they were convinced to ignore. You provided language for experiences they thought were unique to them but turned out to be part of a pattern. That's not destruction, that's liberation. That's not manipulation, that's revelation. You didn't create the chaos, you just stopped lying about the chaos that was always there. Here's what they can't comprehend. You don't hate them. That's what's short-circuiting their brain right now. They've spent so much time and energy trying to make you the villain in their story, and you just refuse to play the role. You don't hate them, you pity them, because you see what they can't. That their entire existence is built on a house of cards, that every relationship they have is transactional, that they're incapable of genuine connection, because they view every human interaction as a game to win. You out-manipulated them not because you wanted to destroy them, but because you wanted to stop them from destroying others. There's a difference between revenge and protection, between attack and defense, between cruelty and justice. You operated from the latter while they've only ever known the former. That moral clarity, that ethical foundation, that's why you won while maintaining your humanity. Their victims are sharing stories now, comparing notes, building timelines. They're creating group chats without the manipulator, sharing screenshots they were told to delete, revealing conversations they were made to feel guilty about having. They're discovering they weren't crazy, weren't too sensitive, weren't the problem. They're realizing that every time they felt something was wrong, something actually was wrong. That their intuition wasn't broken, it was screaming truth at them while being systematically silenced. You didn't give them new information as much as you gave them permission to trust what they already knew but were convinced to doubt. That's powerful. That's transformative. That's why they're calling you hero. Not because you rescued them with force, but because you reminded them they had the power to rescue themselves all along. The manipulator is trying everything now. They're attempting to bribe their way back into good graces, making grand gestures, offering apologies that sound manufactured because they are. They're trying to isolate you, spread rumors about your motives, question your character, paint you as the real manipulator who somehow fooled everyone. But it's not working anymore. You know why? Because you already addressed all of this by simply being consistent. Your actions matched your words. Your private behavior aligned with your public persona. Your treatment of people didn't change based on what you could get from them. You didn't have to defend yourself because your character defended itself. The manipulator's accusations bounce off you like arrows hitting steel, because everyone who actually knows you, who actually experienced your genuine nature, can see the accusations for what they are: projection, desperation, the last gasps of someone who built an empire on lies, watching it dissolve into truth. Let's talk about the moment that's coming, the one they're dreading. It's the moment when even their closest allies, the ones they thought were unshakable, the ones they believed would defend them to the death, even they start questioning. It happens quietly at first, a lingering look, a pause before responding, a conversation that feels slightly off. But it builds, because once the foundation cracks, the entire structure becomes unstable. You didn't cause this collapse, you just stopped participating in the collective delusion that was holding it together. You were like the child in the emperor's new clothes, except instead of shouting that he was naked, you simply asked questions that made everyone realize they were pretending to see fabric that didn't exist. Why did they say that? Does this timeline make sense to you? Have you noticed this pattern? Questions. Simple questions. That's all it took to unravel years of carefully constructed lies. Their victims are evolving in real time now, going through stages of awakening that you recognize because you went through them yourself. First comes the doubt, the tiny crack in the facade. Then comes the research, the investigation, the comparison of stories. Then comes the anger, the rage at being fooled, the fury at wasted time. Then comes the grief, mourning the person they thought they knew, grieving the relationship they believed was real. And finally comes the clarity, the cold, sharp understanding of exactly what happened and why. You're watching them go through this process, and you're not rushing them, not pushing them, not demanding they arrive at conclusions on your timeline. You're just present, available, offering truth without force, validation without agenda. That patience, that respect for their individual journey, that's why they trust you. That's why you're not just another person telling them what to think. You're the person who helped them learn to think for themselves again. The manipulator is realizing they lost control of the narrative, and that's the one thing they can't survive. Their entire power structure was built on being the narrator, the one who defined reality, the one who told everyone what to think and feel and believe. But now there are multiple narratives being shared, perspectives they can't control, truths they can't suppress. They're like a director who lost control of their movie, watching actors go off script, seeing the crew question the vision, witnessing the audience walk out before the ending. You didn't take control of the narrative for yourself. You simply broke their monopoly on it. You opened up space for truth to exist alongside their lies. And truth has this annoying habit of being more compelling than fiction once people are willing to look at it honestly. Here's what's keeping them up at night right now. They're wondering who else knows, who else sees through them, who else is quietly watching, documenting, waiting, because you proved something they thought was impossible, that they could be outmaneuvered, that someone could learn their tactics, anticipate their moves, counter their strategies, and do it all without becoming the villain in the process. You're their worst nightmare because you're proof that their manipulation has an antidote, that their gaslighting has a cure, that their control has a counter. They can't paint you as crazy because you're too calm. They can't paint you as emotional because you're too strategic. They can't paint you as vindictive because you're too measured. Every weapon in their arsenal just bounces off you because you removed the targets they were aiming at. Their victims are asking you questions now, trying to understand how you saw through it when they couldn't, how you maintained your sanity when they were losing theirs, how you resisted when they surrendered. And your answer is probably simple, probably humble, probably something like, I just paid attention, or I trusted my gut, or I did my research. But what they're really asking is, how do I become like you? Not in a worship way, but in a survival way. They want to develop that same radar, that same immunity, that same strength. They're looking at you and seeing not just someone who escaped, but someone who turned their experience into wisdom, their pain into protection for others, their trauma into teaching. That's not victimhood, that's victory. That's not surviving, that's thriving. That's not just getting out, that's making sure others can get out too. The manipulator is discovering something about their victims that you already knew. They're stronger than they were given credit for. The manipulator underestimated them, saw them as weak, as easy targets, as people who would never question or resist. But you saw them differently. You saw them as people temporarily trapped in confusion, not permanently broken by weakness. You saw them as intelligent people dealing with intelligent manipulation, not stupid people falling for obvious lies. You treated them with respect even when they didn't show you any, because you understood they were operating with incomplete information, seeing through distorted lenses, trying to navigate in deliberate darkness. That respect, that grace, that understanding, it created a bridge they could walk across when they were ready. Let's address the elephant in the room, the one the manipulator keeps screaming about. You're just as manipulative as I am. You're doing the same thing. You're turning people against me. But here's the difference, and it's a crucial one. You're not turning people against anyone. You're turning people toward truth. You're not manipulating perspective. You're correcting distortion. You're not creating division. You're revealing division that already existed, but was being hidden. Manipulation uses lies to control. Truth-telling uses evidence to inform. Manipulation removes choice. Truth-telling empowers choice. Manipulation benefits the manipulator. Truth-telling benefits the manipulated. See the difference? The manipulator sees these as the same because in their worldview, everything is manipulation. Every interaction is a power play. Every conversation is a chess move. They can't comprehend that you might be operating from genuine care rather than strategic positioning. Their victims are starting to see patterns they missed before, not just in the manipulator, but in themselves. Why did I defend them so aggressively? Why did I attack people who questioned them? Why did I ignore red flags I would have noticed in any other relationship? They're not just learning about the manipulator, they're learning about manipulation itself.